Mate, I'm sorry I'm not with you. Last time, obviously, we made the journey, and Rob and I came down and we captured that podcast and the video content. But
Yeah.
the way the world is now, mate, you've been busy. Congratulations, mate. I mean, what an achievement. I've been watching you from afar on social media and everything that you've done. I mean, how are you how are you right now as you sort of a couple of days after finishing?
Yeah, tired. um, yeah, so I finished a week ago. So I finished on the Sunday, which was day 105. Monday, Tuesday, I felt good, man. I was like, damn it, why did the coin tell me to stop? I was totally ready to carry on. But then Wednesday, my body just went, yeah, we're over now. And it's gone into meltdown mode, it seems. So yeah, I'm knackered. I tried to do a Joe Wicks this morning with my wife and bloody nearly died. Can hardly do a squat.
But what do you mean your body's like you've died? What's the body feel? Is it everything sore? Can't touch your
No,
toes,
just
getting out
like
of bed?
no, there's no like niggles. I mean, there's a couple of little ones. Little like my right hip has still got the issues I had from day 60 something. My plantar fascia are still a little tight. Um, but actually everything else seems okay. It's hard to. I just feel empty.
Yeah.
Like there's just zero energy. Like nothing. I try and walk up the stairs and I'm out of breath. And I don't know why, because if you looked at all my numbers on the last few days or even the last month, like the numbers were good. Like my power was pretty decent on the bike, my pace was good. So like it's there somewhere. I've still got it, but I've lost it. Like my body's just decided because my head's good,
Mm-hmm.
which I was sort of surprised. I'm sort of really motivated to try and keep fit, but the body just says no. It's just like, nah, I'm tired now, So
Is
don't
this a
know.
different? Is this a different tire to what you felt before after some of your challenges?
Yeah. So because it's interesting. So a lot of the other challenges I've had sleep deprivation.
Uh-huh.
So that brings in a whole new level of tiredness, which I've not had on this one. But I've also had more rest days or shorter days or recovery days on everything else.
Mm-hmm.
You know, on almost everything else I did. So my across Europe ride, I had no rest days. So that was 24 days, 25 days on the road. But, I had quite short days in the end in Russia because of the headwind and because I didn't want to do any night riding because of just safety concerns. So by the time I sort of got, and because I had such a buffer, I had 24 hours. I was 24 hours ahead of the record when I hit the Russian border. I could afford to have some easy days. So by the time I'd finished the across Europe ride, I'd sort of recovered, if you
Yeah.
know what I mean. Whereas on this one, it's just go. Like you got to tick all those boxes. There's no averaging. If you can't have a short day and make it up tomorrow and any of that. So this one sort of hit me really hard physically, um, more than I thought it would. Because as I said, I was feeling good. Like I was gutted. I didn't want to quit, and that's why I left it to the coin to decide,
Yeah.
so that it wasn't me giving up or wasn't me deciding to stop because I couldn't have that in my head. Whereas if the coin told me to stop, then I was like,
Yeah.
right, okay, I'm sort of cool with that. It wasn't my fault. It was the coin. Um, but no, yeah. So it is definitely taking a toll, and I'm older. The last thing I did was 2018. Last long thing. I've run across Iceland. I did the National Parks Marathon and the 496 Challenge and a whole
But
lot of little stuff.
that's
You
just
know,
easy. That's nothing for you. Come on. It's
yeah, but
just
if it's less than 2 weeks, I sort of don't count it nowadays, which is
well, come on.
the world I'm in.
We're obviously going to spend a lot of time on the 105, what you've just done. But you and I, we first talked about this back in June 22, came down, we did the podcast. Tell us about that. And I don't want to dwell on that, but the motivation you took from starting the first attempt,
Yeah,
because
yeah, yeah.
that was there. And I mean, you didn't go silent, you didn't disappear. You obviously got fit again, sorted the ankle out, and just planned and ahead. And I think you went around Wales and you kept busy. But what was that like when you had to stop the first time?
Yeah, no, I'm super keen to talk about my failure the first time. I think I have zero interest in trying to push that one under the carpet, because I think it's all part of my story.
Yeah.
Um, I made I made some poor choices in that first attempt. A little bit my fault, a lot of it my fault, a lot of it just circumstances. I probably shouldn't have attempted it last year from a timing point of view because, you know, I didn't have a bike until a week before. I didn't have a wetsuit till a week before. I didn't have running shoes till a week before. And this is all due to the COVID supply chain issues. Like my bike sponsor were like, I'm sorry, like we don't have bikes, um, there's a lot of things that sort of took my mind away from sort of the task at hand, which was, getting a good route for one. That was probably one of my biggest sort of mistakes. I didn't really take into consideration enough how hard my route was last year, and I had changed it already. So I got injured on day 5. So basically, the injury was super stupid. I was going really slowly up a gentle climb, probably doing 10 mile an hour. And I went to reach into my jersey back pocket, and I had my right hand on the elbow pad of the tri bars. So right hand there, jersey back pocket. My front wheel went into one of those long, thin potholes that you get along the edge of where they've dug a trench in the road to, put in a pipe, and then they refilled it, and over time it cracks along the edge. So the front wheel went into that. So in that sort of moment, I went to grab the handlebars, but the right hand, because it was on the elbow pad, was sort of not really doing much. So I overcorrected and just steered left straight into the hedge. Went over the handlebars, bent the hoods left. I didn't hit the floor. I sort of got caught up in the hedge, but the bike must have hit the floor because the hoods were fully bent, like flat against the front of the handlebar. But my left leg stayed clipped in. So, and I remember sort of getting up going, A, did anyone see me? That's embarrassing. And then B, I was like, oh, my knee. And I was like, oh, my knee's a bit. And I was like, oh, okay. I didn't even think about the ankle. And I carried on cycling. And when I got onto the run that day, I realized I'd done something to the top bit of where your foot meets your shin. There's that tendon that is used to lift your toe up. And that's when I realized, oh, actually, I've done something to that tendon. But I thought, right, let me slog it out. Anyway, day 6 came along. Woke up, felt fine. Swim was fine. Bike was fine. Got on the run. It had come on fast. And then end of day 6, I was like, oh, this is not looking good. My physio came and he's like, wow, that's really come on fast. Yeah. So I must have been doing something else as well on the bike, like maybe pulling up a little bit, which was aggravating it, and plus the inflammation. I don't know. And then day 7, same thing. By the time I got to the run on day 7, I couldn't even run. I hobbled. I think I did a 9-hour marathon or something ridiculous. I'd way past the unofficial 17-hour cutoff, and I was, I think I was 7 minutes before the midnight cutoff. So, there's sort of the midnight to midnight is what you really have, but there's also the 17-hour cutoff as well. So so that was there was about 3 or 4 days where I was sort of drowning in my own sorrows, where I just thought, I just I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what to think. I put a lot of effort and energy into that, trained really hard for 6 months, which in hindsight maybe wasn't enough. It's hard to tell. My bike, that day 7 was my fastest bike ride. As I said, I'd already changed everything by day 7. I'd moved to a pool swim. I'd moved the bike course to a flatter course and moved the run course to pretty much the run course I did on this attempt. So I'd already implemented some changes. But I was probably a little bit down on some of my power. The endurance was there, but I think I could have been a little bit faster. And that was the big lesson I took, other than the changing the routes to make it just a bit more user friendly and a bit more sort of, with less elevation, basically. The biggest thing I took was I think I needed to work on my speed. I had the endurance from my past experiences, but the speed, I needed to be hitting what I thought actually was the optimum time would be a 15-hour full distance. It changed to, I think the optimum then became a 14-hour through this challenge, I worked out 15 because I was spending about 35 to 40 minutes in a car each day. That was taking away from my sleep. So really the 14 and a half hour almost became the sort of the minimum to be sustainable. So I get enough recovery and sleep. But yeah, so that's sort of what I learned. I learned really I needed to probably get a little bit quicker and get a better route. But everything else, it was again just a learning curve, really.
Did you have your, like, in those 5 days to 7 days? Did you think you had your nutrition dialed in? How were you doing that, or was it literally just get up and go, see how things unfold? I've read reports already that you were. Is it true you were coconut oil and just eating things raw and just getting anything into you for the calories?
Yeah, totally. So I was eating about 8,000 calories a day, and I have to say I was pretty on it on my nutrition. I only lost 3 kgs in the 105 days, and I lost them almost uniformly. So it was sort of about a kg a month. And yeah, so I was trying to get a lot of fat in just for the calories, so I wouldn't lose weight. So a lot of coconut oil, a lot of full fat cream, and a thing of full fat cream, a tub of full fat cream is 1,500 calories, or the bigger one, which is 750 ml, is 3,500, I think, or something. I'm not exactly correct on those exact measurements, but I know the big tub was 3,500 calories. So that was sort of my fat content, and then I was getting a lot of carbs in the powder.
Yeah.
So I was having carb powders in my bottles. So that was helping. Then I was eating, like, the stuff I ate was mainly sort of meats, milks, as in sort of cheese and stuff like that, nuts and fruit. I wish I'd had more vegetables. I hardly had any vegetables during the challenge, other than in my evening meal.
Blended.
And yeah, blended, exactly. Yeah, I blended a lot. Whatever Caroline and the boys were having, I would just blend that and have that because it was just easy on the digestion. And yeah, just I could swallow it at least.
So did you manage on this attempt, like, dinner with the family most nights, or how did that? How did your day unfold? Because obviously every morning I would wake and there's you in your pajamas walking into the swimming pool, and I was like, "Look at him, he's broken, he's a zombie." And then you're in the pool and he's gone. And I'm like, "What
Yeah.
the hell?" Then the live feed would come on, and you're just up and down that pool. What was
Yeah.
nighttime like with the kids when you actually got home?
Yeah, I mean, it depends. In the early days, I was missing the kids. On the first couple of weeks, I've just published my actual splits. So you can actually go onto my website and look at all my splits. So swim time, T1, bike, T2, run time, total time. And you can see, if it's anything hovering around 16 hours, which it did for a while, that means I'm only finishing at 9.
Yeah.
So what? No, 16, 12, 3, 5, 6. So finishing at 8. Um, no, finishing at 9. Yeah. Yeah, 16 hours would be finishing at 9 o'clock, which means I'd only get home at 9:30, which means I'd only get into bed for 10:30, because I originally was having physio for the first month every night. And then I soon realized that actually, I needed the sleep over the physio. Definitely needed the physio at the beginning because there was a couple of real tight bits and a little bit of taping I needed doing, which had I not addressed would have definitely led to something way more catastrophic down the line. So I'm glad I did that. But then once I've figured out all the niggles were good and all the taping was good, and I had the knee straps for the run, which were the big issues at the beginning, then I could sacrifice the physio and have sleep. And as soon as I did that, just my times got better because I had more recovery. That hour extra sleep did way more for me than the hour of physio at that time. I still saw Simon, my physio, once a week after that, and then few more times near the end when I started getting my hip issues. But yeah, so at the beginning I didn't see the kids at all, but then on my fast days, sort of, it's around 50, 60s, somewhere around there, I would get home at around 7:30. I was getting home, which meant I had a good half hour with the kids, and then always in bed by 8:30 if I could. That was the bare minimum. And then it meant getting up at 4:29. I had my 8 hours, and that for me meant it became sustainable from then on. Really, once I started hitting the 8 hours sleep, then I knew that if I turned up and just ticked all the boxes every day, so the food, water, sleep, muscle management, motivation, the planning, everything, dealing with all that sort of stuff, nailing all the little things early on. I'm quite good at that. I think that's probably why I've been able to do these things, is I microanalyze everything. If I'm 10 minutes quicker today than yesterday, I'm like, right, why am I and it might be something like the wind was more favorable today, so I'm like, okay, well, that's why. But if everything was the same, I'm like, right, did I spend longer on transitions, or did I sleep better? Did I sleep worse? Did that little niggle, why is that happening? Did that make me slower? And every day I'm micromanaging my body and trying to work out everything, just so that, I hardly ever get blisters. I got really good technique, but every now and then I'd feel a little rubbing on my heel or on my toe. And I was like, right, shoe off, Vaseline, tape, just nail it in the bud super early on, rather than go, it'll be fine. It'll be fine. Really, there should be no reason to get a blister on this when you're not really pushed for time. Like, you can afford to take 3 minutes out to put Vaseline on your foot and tape it up, really. So it's ticking all those boxes, and there's probably 10 or 15 of them every single day. Is the only way you can make this sustainable without having a miserable time.
And you talk about sleep, getting that 8 hours. Was it head hit the pillow, you were out, or how was sleep through it? Early on, difficult, but then you got into a rhythm. How was getting home? Say night to Caroline. This, I mean, were you in your own room? I mean, what? Get to the specifics. Did you need blacked out curtains, everything? Because we're in the middle of the summer, the nights are light. How did you get to that sleep pattern?
Yeah, so I was in the spare room, and I put blackout blinds in and blackout curtains. So I was sort of doubling up on the curtains. I wore earplugs to fall asleep. The first week was tough. I wore a Whoop band for the first week, and it said my sleeping heart rate was 89 average. So, it's normally in the late 30s or 40s. So my body was just in severe shock. I wasn't absorbing enough nutrients because all the blood was in my legs, because it was just, in high stress mode. And, on day one and two, I was going to the loo like 7 or 8 times. A lot of it on the run. I'd land up going to the loo like 5 times on the run. So if you go back and look at my Strava, there's all these little detours into the bush and back again and all that. Yeah, so originally I'd get in, eat, and because I was so delayed on time, because I was so slow, I wouldn't even have a shower. I'd just get straight into bed and sleep. And I was getting, as I said, high heart rate all night. I was getting the hot sweats as well, so I was like sweating a lot. So I eventually decided to sacrifice 15 minutes sleep to have a shower to wash all the sun cream off me, mainly so that my skin could breathe. And then I moved away from using a duvet and eventually only slept in a sheet, and left the window open to have a really cold room. And that really helped a lot as well. And then as my body adapted, by sort of day 20 or 30, my average heart rate for the day was 110. And once that had stabilized nicely, so I wasn't pushing big heart rate, then my sleep got better because my body was under less shock. I probably had less cortisol in my system, and I was starting to sleep more. So it's sort of, it's a compounding effect. The more sleep you get, the faster you can go. So the more recovery time you have, so the more sleep you're allowed to get, which means you can then go even faster. So you get, it's all about staying on the front of the wave. The first couple of weeks on the back of the wave, clawing my way in, only getting 4 or 5 hours sleep or 6 hours sleep, and then feeling, absolutely knackered the next day, trying to push hard to try and buy some more time. But because I hadn't had enough recovery, I couldn't go faster, and that's a little bit what happened in the first attempt. Because my recovery was so little, I just physically was getting slower. And that can happen if you're not strong enough and not fit enough. your graph can start just going down and down and down, because you can just never recover. And a lot of people who are a bit slower, and that they really struggle with sort of deckers, because if you're the fast athletes who do deckers, they actually find it not easy, but they have a better time because they're doing it in 12 hours or 13 hours. So they're having tons of time recovery. Whereas the slow people who maybe take by the end 20 hours, because they're doing like a 10-hour bike course and then an 8-hour marathon, they really struggle because they're only getting 4 hours sleep. So so it's weird, the fitter you are, the sort of the easier it gets. And I think I just about scraped through on that. I think if I did it again, I would do a couple of extra things in my training. I would do a week-long bike packing and a week-long run pack, fast pack run. And then I would also do 5 in a row about 6 weeks out. And I think that would have highlighted a couple of the issues that I had at the beginning, and I would have been able to sort of, I think, kind of work on them.
Is that just the biggest exclusive ever that you've just dropped, that if you did it again?
Well, what I really mean is if someone wants to have a crack at my record, come to me and I'll tell you how to do it.
We're going to cover tons here, but come on, have you spoken to the Iron Cowboy? Is James Lawrence?
Yeah. So he's been super supportive all the way along.
Oh, amazing.
And he invited me to his race. He's just held his race, the Starvation Tri in Utah this weekend, and he sent me a message last week saying, "Right, you and me head to head next year, mate. Let's go."
Oh yes,
that would be kind of fun. But I'm just so slow in a standard full distance. I'm just too slow, I think. So you'd own me. I think. I don't know. I feel strong at the. Well, I don't feel strong at the moment, but in my head, I feel once I'm recovered from this, if I can keep the base fitness, I think I've got a good projection for potentially doing quite a fast Ironman if I went and did an Ironman. But I don't know. I've really not. I've never done one day event. I've done the London Marathon and I did one ultra race, and I've done a Tough Mudder. That's sort of my one day event CV.
What did you run the London Marathon dressed as, though?
Oh yeah, as a scout badge.
Yeah, I mean, you're not normal. But what was he in touch with you on the first attempt?
Yes, yeah, he was in touch on the first attempt, and then it was sort of send me a nice message saying, "Oh, I'm sorry, mate. Good luck." And then in touch on the second attempt, and it was super supportive. I sort of invited him out. I thought it'd be cool if he came and did 102 with me, and he was keen, but he was busy with this triathlon that he puts on, so it was a bit late notice and that sort of thing. But super supportive. He sent me a really nice voicemail and sort of saying, I'm at the top of the mountain and alone at the top of the mountain. And I was like, oh no, I'm not. You're there with me, mate. So yeah, I mean, it was because he inspired me to do it.
Oh, I remember you said you the respect you have for him and the way you spoke about him on the first podcast, and it was an honor to try and take on it and break his world record. And
because he did the 101, and then I sort of the thing that I mean I was always, it piqued my interest, and I think maybe arrogantly, but I think this record had my name written all over it. I'd done the world's longest triathlon. I've done a triathlon the length of Britain. It seemed like, and of the 4 categories of world records you can break, you got firsts, furthest, fastest, and mosts of. It was the last one to do. I got a record in the other 3, so it had my name written all over it, I think. But when I announced it last year, the internet seemed to disagree with me. So I don't know. I really believed that this was sort of something that I could definitely take on. A lot of people thought, James was the only person who could do it. And I mean, he just had a rough time. I had a much, much better time than him. And to be honest, the way he did it is just incredible. Hats off to him for suffering through the 98 marathons with a stress fracture and having to walk them. Like, walking a marathon is way harder than running one. he was doing 7-hour marathons and I was doing about 5.5, which is way easier. It's way less time on your legs. You're not using any of your fascia to bounce. You're gluting you're gluting it, you're heel striking. Yeah, I mean, the resilience he had to pull that off in his condition was just super impressive.
How does it feel to have proved all those naysayers wrong and to say, hey, I've done it?
Yeah, I sort of don't really care.
Yeah.
It's a personal thing. A lot of people said swimming Britain was impossible, and I looked at it a lot. I really just looked at all the figures, and same with this record. I was like, right, worst case scenario, hour and a half swim, uh, 8-hour bike takes you to 10, 7, 6 hour run, 6.5 even. You're still just about getting enough sleep. Not really, but in my head, I thought, well, that's sort of doable because I've done, I've done two things that have been longer than 105 days. I've done the round the world cycle and the length of Britain swim, and then my world's longest triathlon was 85 days. So I've hovered around the 100 and more for a while. And also in a lot of the other stuff, especially the cycling, I'm doing longer hours. I'm sort of doing on the bike at 4 a.m. and going through to like 10 o'clock at night. So in my head, it didn't scare me breaking it down like that. What did scare me though was on the 10th of April when I started, everyone's like, you're going to be doing one a day until the 20th of July. I was
Yeah.
like, that is a long way away. I slept to get through the end of April, all of May, all of June, and almost the all of July just to finish it. And that was the one time that I suddenly realized, geez, maybe I've not thought this through properly.
But did you break it down into small chunks? How did you get through it?
So when I woke up every morning, I couldn't go down the stairs. You've been to my house, getting down the stairs to the car. I mean, I had to hold on the railing. I had to walk sideways with this sort of weird limp thing going on. So it was, yeah, it was a struggle. But I knew that once I was in the pool, I'd feel okay. And the pool sort of fixes everything. And the pool, I don't want to say it's easy, but it sort of is because it's only an hour 20 for me, whereas the bike and the run are 6-7 hours, and there's zero impact. And once you get into your rhythm and once you get into your technique, it the difference between the best day and the worst day for me, I think, was 10 minutes, whereas the difference between the best day and the worst day on the bike was 2 hours 15. And the same on the run. I think I had nearly 2 hours between my best and worst. I think an hour 50. So you can mess up the bike and the run way more than you can mess up the swim. So I knew once I was in the pool, I would start feeling a bit better. I'd be loosened up a little bit. And then again, I knew on the bike, as long as I didn't really have some terrible weather, I was due to probably be okay, to do an okay bike. And then it was just the run, really, trying to get the run so that I didn't blow my knees out, because that's the one that hurts the most by a long way.
Yeah, I mean, watching you every morning walking around that doorway and into the swimming pool, you did look like a zombie. But then the next clip would be in the pool, and it's literally just watching like, Jesus, he's going again. Like Abby, he's out again. He's still going constantly. Abby and I watching it here, and he's up again. And my friend Gav Calendar, I don't know if you
Yeah,
remember,
yeah.
he came down and saw you, and I think he did everything. Did he swim? He cycled with you, and then he's now since done his own Ironman and all this sort of stuff.
Yeah, so Gav did Bolton, and when he came and joined me, he actually did half the run the day before, and then he did the swim and the bike together the following day. So he nearly did a full over with a bit of a sleep in his camper van the night in between. So yeah, it was great. It was great having the support, and actually that really sort of made it. I always say I had this oil painting version of Iron 105 in my head of how it would look, and the painting of this came out way better than I'd imagined.
But just give a shout out to all those people that did join you, and as I say that, watching the people, seeing everything, the momentum build. Obviously, did it get busier and busier on weekends? Obviously, when people had more time, what was it like just having the numbers of people around you on the run, in the pool, on the bike?
Yeah, it was amazing the support I had. It was interesting on the bike. I was sort of getting a bit of support for a while, so for the first couple of weeks, and then, or the first week anyway, and then on day 9, annoyingly, we did me and a guy called Adam and Ben just did a really fast bike leg. I think it was the fastest by a long way. I think we did a 5:59 ride time, that's the one that pops up on Strava automatically until we had to. Every night we would go and change it to a race to show the total time. But before that happened, people were seeing a 5:59. Oh my, that's way too quick for me. So the next couple of weeks, I was sort of getting way less riders come and join me because they were just terrified. They were like, well, I can't do a 5:59. And I'm like, please, I'd rather someone slow come and join me than sort of me just be on my own and bloody in April where it's pouring with rain and miserable. So yeah, it and then it settled down a bit. But because the bike was quite quick, it really it meant I didn't have too many, because the roads, my cycle course couldn't have taken 50 riders. It just wouldn't have been safe. There's not enough safe passing places for cars. So for the most part, I would have 2 or 3, and then weekends 5 or 6, and then a couple of the busy weekends of sort of 15, I guess, until right near the end where it got really, really busy. But again, because the bike was quick, it sort of naturally selected, good riders, and there was a bunch of the regulars, I called them, who would come out a lot. Some came out 30 or 40 times, 50, 60 times to join me between, the bike. Everyday James, we called him. He must have come out 60 or 70 times between cycling and running, because he lived on my run route. So he would join me there too. And yeah, he was also the guy who would sort of shout at people who weren't fit enough or quick enough or would not riding in a straight line. It was hilarious because, some new guys would come and potentially not have much experience cycling in a group, and it's quite easy to pick out. And it wasn't often, but once a week this would happen. And if James was there, it'd be funny. You'd be cycling along, and you just shout at the guy, be like, "Excuse me, mate, would you bloody cycle in a straight line?"
Well, I suppose you would need that.
Like, oh,
yeah.
No, you need it. I needed someone to crack the whip, because I couldn't do it. These people had got up early and traveled far to come and join me. And the last thing I want to do is say, sorry, mate, you're actually not fit enough. We're fast, and I'm fast, and I need to do a good time so that this is repeatable, because if I'm too slow on the bike, I'm just not going to recover, and that sort of thing. And naturally, often if they weren't fast enough, they would just drop off the back. And then that was fine. But every now and then someone would try and hold on to their life, and then they're not looking at potholes and things. So we did have two crashes in front of me where basically the riders weren't quite up to the pace and just made some mistakes and overlapped wheels, and I had to, both times I went over a back wheel, or sort of hit a back wheel on the first time, and the second time 3 riders went down. There was the guy who wasn't quick enough. He went into the back of someone, and then going into him, and then the guy in front of me went over them as well. And luckily I swerved and managed to avoid that. So that was pretty close. And then there was a third accident in the wet, just going around a corner, and 2 of the riders slid out in front of me. But that was just unlucky. We had one of those days where it just did a little bit of rain and not enough rain to wash all the oil off the road. So and they were, so that didn't really affect me at all. But it was the worry. I mean, that was the biggest worry, really, is this, the potential for crashing, basically just not making it because of falling off the bike or having a crash. So it was always quite stressful. Looking, I was always looking ahead. Is there any overlapped wheels ahead of me? Is there any, riding with their hands on the crossbar rather than on the hoods where they got, you know, access to the brakes. People would come with TT bikes, which, you know, was super nervous because it's like, come on, you know, like you need to be on the brakes the whole time. And because my course wasn't ideal, the bike course, I had 75 junctions that could have potentially been a stop to zero junction.
Yeah.
On the course. You often didn't, but you definitely slowed down to about, you know, 5 mile an hour on each of them. So you know, I couldn't hour doing 20 mile an hour, which would have been nice. You know, it was 20 mile an hour, 22 mile an hour, down to 5 mile an hour, up to 22 mile an hour, down to 5 mile an hour.
Yeah.
Which is why I never landed up ever doing the really fast bike courses, because I probably could have done a 5:15 or 5:30, I think, really easily with the sort of, if we had a course with less corners and less junctions. But that is what it is. It was still
You made it.
enough for me
You made it.
to be able to
You
do a good time. Yeah, exactly.
you
Yeah, it turns
smashed
out.
it.
But I have
And
to say, like, you know, in the first month, it did great on me, my bike course, and I almost let it get to me, because I was thinking, oh, if only I'd had a better bike course, you know. And eventually I'd just be like, well, you don't have a better bike course. Well, there's bugger all you can do about it. So just keep calm and crack on, you idiot. And that was sort of what I had to think about, you know.
that was one of the questions that came in when I did that sort of call out for questions today on Instagram. It was, what was the hardest point? Was there ever a point in this where you're like, I'm done?
No, but there was a point around day 30 something where, you know, I remember waking up. Sorry, I remember getting home. I'd had a rubbish day because of weather and everything. I remember our fundraising figure on day like 30 was still only like £1,000. Caroline was just having the worst time with the boys. You know, I've got a 4-year-old and an under 2-year-old. She's self-employed. I could see she was just had a bad day, and you know, I'm here going, well, what's the point? You know, we've not raised for charity. Caroline's struggling. I'm struggling. You know, does anyone really care about this thing? Like, what's the point? So I had a little wobble around there, and then sort of woke up and was like, no, the money will come in for the charity. Like, that people are just waiting till the end, which and is exactly what happened. You know, in the last week we raised more than we did in the first 90 days. You know, so yeah, I just sort of had to park that and just trust that when I got to the end, because for me it was always a win. I even printed numbers up to 123 because I wanted to manifest the concept of not only doing it, actually going way past it, you know.
Yeah.
And if I believed that that was going to happen, and I'd already paid to get the numbers and the hats printed, then, you know, that was all just part of my process of being confident that I was going to actually do it, you know.
Yeah, no, I saw that. I saw that when that question came into you and you'd printed 123. I was like, Jesus. I mean, he did manifest that. He did put the effort in to go well beyond what was necessary to break the record. Pretty impressive. Have you
Yeah,
always done that? Have you
exactly.
always sort of gone beyond, pushed beyond what you think you need to achieve just to get that mindset over the line?
Yeah, yeah. Oh God, yeah. In my head, I have to aim for something way further or harder or faster, and then, you know, it just makes me believe. I mean, I always believed I could do it. I had to, and everything was a non-negotiable. Getting up at 4:29 a.m. non-negotiable. I never once woke up and thought, "Oh, I don't want to do this." I was like, "But this is just what I do." Like, you wake up, you have breakfast, you brush your teeth, you put clothes on. There's lots of things we all do that we don't question, right?
Yeah.
And I use the brushing the teeth one as an example because, like, brushing your teeth every day is a non-negotiable, should be anyway. And I sort of put me getting up and doing this in the same league as that. It's like I can't even question it. There's no plan B. There's no small wins either. So I never had a small win in this. So I didn't celebrate when I got to 21. So when I got to 21, I had the British record. I didn't celebrate when I got to 61, which meant I was number 2 in the world and number 1 in Europe. So there's a Lithuanian guy, I think, who did 60. And yeah, I never celebrated any of that. I didn't celebrate my fastest, when I mean celebrate, like properly celebrate in myself. I talked about it. I said, oh, we had a really fast bike course today. Because the worry was if something bad happened at day 85, I might have got enough from it already to go, oh well, I didn't make the 100, but I'm at least number one in Britain, and that wouldn't have worked for me. I needed to be blinkers on, all or nothing, and that's the only way I sort of go into these, to be honest.
You see, now that you say that you're knackered and your body's, you've got to get used to the way you feel. I'm surprised, and maybe that's just me not understanding the human body enough, but you put out that you'd done the Joe Wicks with Caroline. You'd think that you'd be super fit now. That your body and the way that those photos that you put out of what you look like before, and you look shredded now and in good shape, and you've not lost that much weight. But then to go and do a Joe Wicks in your living room is extremely hard. It's hard to kind of get
Yeah.
your head around that. Anything behind that, or anything that?
No, and I'm struggling now as well with it, in my own head. I also try to I did a watt bike session yesterday as well. And again, like my power data is okay. I mean, I did an FTP and it was 237, which is quite low. I just feel weak. Um, for me, at 68 kgs now, I'd like that FTP up at around 280, maybe even 300. So to be 237 is pretty low. And again, that watt bike session yesterday, my numbers were okay, but I just felt awful for it. You know, and I don't know what it is, because you're right. I should feel, muscularly, I'm probably am still fit, but there's a lot of other stuff. There's probably some neurons and that are probably struggling. My fascias maybe struggling. My neural pathways maybe are struggling. My motivation, even though in my head I feel motivated, but maybe that's not really. Maybe I'm just lying to myself. I don't know.
Have you asked James? Have you asked James what he was like afterwards, or any hints or tips what he did?
Well, he struggled way more than I've struggled, and I know that listening to his podcasts, he had to go for brain scans and things. Now, I think the biggest difference between me and him is he was having way less sleep than I was. So that just would have really affected his long-term
Yeah,
sort of mental side of it. People who do sleep deprivation for long periods, I've been there. Yeah, it really hammers you that. And the other thing is, he was having to do that run with those injuries every single day. I can just imagine his cortisol levels would have been way higher than mine as well. Because, at the end of his bike, he still had this like, oh my God, I got to do this run with poles and, fast walk the run,
yeah,
heel striking, dealing with the pain of a stress fracture. So, and also he's not done anything about 100 days. I feel I've got a little bit more experience in doing the
yeah,
long stuff
yeah.
and coming off of it at the end. So it's probably those are the reasons I've maybe gotten away a bit lighter than he did from a recovery point of view. But it's only been a week. Who knows? I may die next week and be drowning in my sorrows and have to go for scans. But I feel okay. I mean, in my head, I feel good. The body's just sort of letting me down a little bit. And I don't know how long that's going to last.
Now, as a dad to a dad here, and I know if I went away for 105 days and did what you did, or something, probably not that, but it just went away, and I came back, Abby would just hand me 3 children. How's Caroline now it's over? How's dad life now that you're available and you're around?
Yeah, yeah. Well, the running joke is I did iron 105 and now I'm doing ironing 105. Caroline's doing all the laundry. You know what? I missed being a dad the most. That
Yeah,
was the thing I missed. Just boring stuff that normally I'm like, geez, do I have to, change nappies and do bath time, which is always stressful. Whereas now I love it. I get to put the boys, well, Monty, our oldest, I get to, do bedtime with him and that. And Sebastian, our youngest, he's only 22 months or something. He's, he was too little really to understand what I was doing. Monty was old enough and he knew that I was doing a challenge, and he knew it was important because everyone at his school was sending messages and I was sending videos that they would play at assembly. But towards the end, like for the last week or 2 weeks, he was saying, Daddy, are you finished with your challenge? So I can play with me. You can play with me now. And I was like, just, so that was tough. That was tough. But and it was hard for Caroline, solo parenting. Shout out to all the parents, the solo parents out there. It's a tough gig. Um, it did answer the question whether whether we should have a third child. I think the answer is no to that one now. But yeah, it was Caroline was just amazing. She held the fort. She's self-employed as well, so not only was she solo parenting, she was still, doing her own job and all that, and she was doing my social media on the weekends. And yeah, she's amazing. I hit the wife lottery for sure.
Yeah, you should. And hey, the sandwiches you put on the spread last year was fantastic as well. So everything's going well in the Conway household. Honestly, the
Absolutely.
hospitality in your house is tremendous, and
I know,
and
yeah.
the cold plunge and everything. Yeah, but what's
Mm.
next? No, I don't mean challenge, but what comes now? I mean, there'll be books, I'm sure. Are you going to festivals to tell your story? What's going to unfold in the coming months?
Yeah, so I'm definitely going to write the book. I don't know what that book looks like yet. I don't think it's a day one that's happened, day two that happened. So I need to really think about what I want to talk about. There's the 10 pillars of endurance. So it was always 6, and then I've added quite a few more since doing this, which is planning, experience, health, food, water, sleep, muscle management, motivation, community, and fitness. So I might talk about those. I think if you want to do a big long challenge, those you need to focus on those 10 elements. For now, I might think of more. And within them are sub elements like, within the food bit, there's energy, recovery, health, and all these sort of things. And with hydration, there's what type of hydration, and there's a salt element as well. And it'll be, I don't know, I don't want to be too sciencey, but I definitely feel I should address some of those things that, because people often ask me like, how did you do it? And it's ticking all those boxes every single day will allow you to actually do good mileage and do ultra endurance. So yeah, I'm going to write the book. I would love to get onto the speaking circuit again, which has been a bit quiet since COVID, but I think now it's opening up again, and I just want to share my story. I'm also now pretty much volunteering full time for the True Venture Foundation, who I raise money for. We're nearly at 100 grand now for the foundation, and that will, a lot of that, I think 50 grand of that will go into a pot where people can apply for grants to keep kids in sports. So if there's clubs who need equipment and XYZ, initially based here in North Wales, but we're hoping to grow the area once we get more funding, and B, expand on the type of sports we'll give grants to. But initially, it's probably all the sort of individual sports, as it were, and that we're gonna, things like ball don't need our help. To be fair, they've got enough help. But all the niche things like water polo and triathlon and swim, cycle, run independently for young kids. So I'm really keen. I'm going to work with Ryan Morrison, the founder of the foundation. Him and I are pretty much, teaming up to go into schools and going to all the youth clubs and talk to them and talk to the trainers and work out what they need and, how they can increase numbers within the clubs and that sort of thing. So I'm really super excited about that. I also really would love to try and find a female to get the female full iron distance record, which I think is 20. I think. If anyone knows if it's more than that, please let me know, because I'm super keen to help that. And in fact, Caroline, she's thrown her name in the hat for that one for
Really?
next year, potentially. Yeah.
Wow.
She's a good swimmer and she can run. She did a marathon. So for the last 8 weekends, she did a marathon every weekend with me with zero training. She just needs to get a bit faster on the bike through her own admission. But she's good on the bike. Like we did the Fred Witten together. We actually cycling, so she can be good. She's just not cycled in 5 years. But how cool would that be? Husband and wife having the
That would be
having the
very cool.
record.
That would be very
Yeah.
cool. And
So
you emailed me earlier, Rich Roll. You going on the podcast?
got Rich Roll podcast 23rd of August. So a couple of weeks. Where are we now? Nearly the first. Yeah, 3 weeks from now. So that's that'd be great. Yeah, looking forward to that.
Is that online, or are you making the trip?
So he's actually coming here.
Oh
Not for
wow!
me. I think he was coming over anyway. So I'm going to London, and he's got a studio that he's booked out to do a couple of podcasts, I think, for people here. I was well up for going over there, but he's here anyway. So I'm trying to sort of, I don't know how many more passes I'll get for an overnight away from Caroline. I think, the IOUs are pretty high at the moment. So doing Rich Roll, which for me has always been, something that because I've listened to, a lot of his stuff as well. So that should be good fun, really.
That's fantastic. No, it's exciting, obviously, following you. And what about like Kendall Mountain Festival and things like that? Will you end up at festivals or
I
on
think
stage and things
so.
like
I've been speaking to Ordnance Survey, and I know they have some slots at Kendall that I might hijack on their behalf. As I said, it's only been a week. I've
that?
sort of not really done anything useful, to be fair. Yeah, it's weird. It still feels like someone else did the 105. Like, as I sit here now, I can only see the 105 as if I was looking onto it and seeing this other ginger hairy bloke doing it. It's sort of a little, I don't want to say out of body experience because that sounds a bit naff, but I still haven't quite worked out that, wow, Sean, you've actually done that. Like you did that thing that you knew you could do, and it was bloody hard and it was miserable. It definitely hasn't sunk in yet. I'm still in that phase of just trying to decompress and work it all out in my head. And I don't know if I ever will, to be honest. In fact, even now, a lot of the other stuff I've done, it's only when I see the book in my downstairs toilet, I'm like, bloody hell, mate. Jeez, yeah, you swam the length of Britain.
Yeah.
took years to finally, go, jeez, good effort, mate. Grandkids might be proud. And I sort of feel a little bit the same about this at the moment. It sort of doesn't quite feel real, I guess it feels like, imagine if you win the lottery, you probably spend the first month going, did I really win the lottery? Like, are you sure? Right, let me just check my bank account again. I sort of feel the same. I'm just going to go on Strava just to make sure I did it. It's like, was it me? Was this a dream? Like, I'm just not really sure where I am with it in my head anyway.
Yeah, I mean, hey, we're all proud of you. We all know you did it. It's one of these things that you have to deal with it your way, I suppose. But from watching on and just seeing you every morning on screen, walking right in that corner, it's like, here he goes. And then like I'll
Yeah.
do it for me personally, do a day at work, and a desk, and then Edinburgh and shooting about, and then getting the kids, and then you see Sean, oh, he's out running, he's still running, and it was just for us watching, it was never ending to think what your body, your mind, the way you had to just keep on going. It's incredible, incredible, mate. So
I mean, I think I sort of joked that I'm basically a stupid goldfish. I sort of have a real short term memory. So
something
and
familiar
that
here.
sort of,
Something, yeah.
yeah, I know. I mean, we were joking that I seem to only have like a 4-day memory. People would come and ride with me or run with me, and I might remember their face. And for example, someone came around with me on day, must have been 80 something, and I was like, "Oh, mate, wow, you're back so soon. That was awesome." And he's like, "What do you mean?" I was like, "You were here just the other day, weren't you?" He's like, "No, mate, I came on day 60." It had been like 4 weeks since he was last there, but in my head he was just like 3 or 4 days ago. And vice versa, someone would come, sort of 3 days apart, and in my head they had come the beginning. Which was strange. Like, yeah, some of the riders who became like some of the most regular riders with me only joined me on day 50. I'd already done half of it, but in my head they were there from the beginning. I'm like, are you sure? Like, it was day 50. Like, yeah, mate. Yeah. I only found out about it because you stole my local legend on Strava.
Breaking
So
records.
yeah, it's just like I've got all the local legends, and well, you lose them after 90 days, but so yeah, my brain really just had no timeline really for things. And even now there's a lot of stuff which definitely I've forgotten, and I'm hoping when I go through Instagram again, and it'll jog my memory a little bit, and that sort of thing. But yeah, I sort of kept a voice note diary, but I'm not sure I did a good enough job of that because I was just so tired. Even at the end of the day, I sometimes couldn't really remember that day in particular because I'm doing the same course. I'll be like, did that car hoot at us today, or was it like yesterday? Did he nearly get run over today, or was that yesterday? It was difficult to work out days from weeks from months. I remember people would ask me, "Oh, do you know what day of the week it is?" I'd be like, "I don't know, 72." That was sort of my only contact time, and even that I'd get wrong. I remember I'd go into the pool, and I got better at the end, but certainly at the beginning, I'd be like, is it day 39? And they'd be like, it's 35. I was like, no,
What about
Um,
the news and current events? Were you up to date with anything that was going on in the world?
no, I stayed off social media for the entire time. I checked my messages on Instagram now and then, just in case there was someone who popped up that I thought was, worth replying to. Otherwise, Justin, who was doing my social media, he would take care of that. Yeah. So, and I did my own daily update, which I would then send to Justin, and he would upload it for me. So yeah, stayed off all news, all social media. I sort of just didn't have the time or energy. I needed to be so focused every single day. I didn't want any distractions. I didn't want any distractions. I didn't want to go down rabbit holes of trying to please everyone on the internet, because it was, and I feel bad because loads of people were genuinely interested in asking loads of questions, and at some point I'll go back and try and answer them all, but I needed to save every ounce of energy
Yeah.
and focus it on what I was doing. I had these grand plans of being able to do that while I was running, but really I didn't do anything. I was just so focused, like every day, like do the thing, look at the times, and I was just, as I said, micro analyzing everything. There's very few times I even allowed myself to even shoot a selfie video of what was happening, because I almost, that was a waste of energy. That was a waste of energy and time. I just needed to crack on and do it, just that it became sustainable, because I felt like if I started doing a little bit more of that on my own, it would just take away my energy from what I had to do, and then eventually I might not make the cutoff or something. So yeah, I was pretty focused basically, and I'm quite good at that. I'm really good at like really tunnel visioning myself and getting rid of the noise. For the most part, there's some days it's harder than others, but yeah, I'd say that's one of my strong points as well in this. Micro analyzing everything and just tunnel vision, get rid of all the unnecessariness in around me, and crack on. And the only way I was able to do that is because my crew were amazing, and it allowed me to do that. When I was running, if I was thirsty, I'd literally just put my hand out and there was a bottle in my hand, and I could drink it, because Phil would cycle next to me on the run. And then obviously on the bike, I had all my nutrition, and then I'd have 3 feed stations where I'd eat as well. And I had about 10 minutes per stop there. So all I really needed to do was get up and do the 3 disciplines, and eat a lot. And if I did that and trusted the process, eventually would be able to sustain it and get to the 102.
Yeah, you nailed it, mate, and I appreciate it. I appreciate you keeping in touch and letting me have this conversation, because I'm tentatively, when we started messaging, just as you were finishing, and
Yeah.
it was like, I can't ask him for time here. I can't say you coming on the show and then you said let's do it. I was like, yes,
Yeah, absolutely, mate. No, I really want to share the story. I think if it inspires anyone out there to get their trainers on and, you know, even have a crack at my record, I sort of half feel like I would have failed if no one has a crack at this the next 5 years. Because I'm not in the business to keep this record forever. That's not really my thing. I get no satisfaction from that. I think all records should be broken. And I think I think I'm probably the guy to have gone longer in the world, from my, you know, from an experience point of view and my fitness and, you know, how well I performed overall. But I'm in the wrong time. My kids are too young. It'd be unfair to go further, which is why I did the coin flip at the end, even though I knew I could go further. How much further? I don't know. I don't know what is further, but I know I could have definitely gone on. I could have done 200, I think.
Really?
Yeah, oh yeah, definitely. My sister, I once I got into my groove, you know, and I wasn't, and the hip thing started to sort of fix itself towards the end. So day 65 to 90 something, it was still pretty painful to run on, but it was not bone issues. It was just a bit of muscle and a bit of tendon stuff and a bit of tightness. I think if I knew I was going further, I could probably worked on that a little bit harder, because by the time I got to like 95, I was like, well, I've suffered through it this long. I can do it a week. But yeah, I think if no one has another crack at it by you know, when I'm in my late 50s, because I think you could probably do this into your 50s. If you look at Decker Dave, he did a double decker, and he was doing 12 hours per day, you know, for a double decker, and he was 57. So, you know, there are people out there who are strong enough physically. It's just whether they want it enough, because you've got to wake up every day at 4:29 a.m. and do it for months. You've got to want it, you know. And I wanted it a lot, you know, and that's probably, you know, one of the reasons I was able to do it. But yeah, I think there's other people out there. There'll be someone out there who wants to have a crack, and yeah, message me. I'll help you for sure.
I find that out a lot when I interview people like you that have got world records. They're always keen to help the next person. It's awesome. It's a mindset of you crazy folk that do these things. It's you want to help the next person, and it's just a fantastic community of people that break these records and keep going.
Yeah,
you know?
I don't think you could live in North Wales though, because I think I used all the credits for the local community on my attempt. I think if someone else said, "Oh, I'm going to go for 120," who live near me, I think a lot of the riders and the runners, you know, would be like, "Oh, not that again."
Yeah, the traffic, and the swimming pool. People just want to get in that lane and use the swimming pool. Yeah, no, mate, Sean.
Yeah, exactly. I think I've used the credits, so yeah.
I've taken enough of your time. Please do, if you're heading north, obviously get in touch. If I'm down your way, I will be in touch. You're some man. Well done for everything, mate. And you know, can't wait to see how things unfold when the book comes out. The Rich Roll podcast, everything that is in front of you. It's very exciting. Good on you, mate.
Yeah, thank you, mate. Yeah, and thanks for your support and believing in me. And I felt bad when I bailed last time, because all the effort you made coming down all the way here to film it and all that. But
I phoned Rob. If you remember, Rob, we came down and filmed the day we saw that post come out. I was like, mate, we were gutted for you. We're absolutely gutted, because we saw what, you know, we were there, we were with you. You announced it, and we did the show and stuff, and we didn't care that for what we were involved in our side of it. We didn't care. It was you. It was like, fuck. He was in this. He was going for it, and then he started again. And Rob and I have kept in touch and watching away and phoning, and he's still going. He's still going. So wait, I won't keep you any longer. It was light when we started. It's darkness through the windows now.
Exactly.
Mate, keep going, keep in touch. Love to the family, and hopefully catch up soon.
Yeah, you too, man. Yeah, we'll see you soon. Nice one, mate. Cheers.